If you struggle with adult friendships, I want you to know that you are not alone. I actually get a lot of questions about things to do with navigating friendships as an adult from you all, just through email and through DMs. But then also in my membership community, the Shift Society, we do a live Q&A session every other week. And I actually get a lot of questions in there as well about people trying to navigate through friendships and close relationships, even into adulthood. We think that it gets easier as we get older, but it's just not true. Sometimes friendships can get even more complicated when we're adults because we often have different needs, and we often have kind of deeper emotional needs and desires for connection from our adult friendships than maybe we did when we were younger. And so with that can come a lot more complication and a lot more confusion. And so today I want to talk about when it is time to perhaps distance yourself or even end an adult friendship. Because many of us stay in friendships maybe for too long, right? And maybe it's because we're like, well, I've known this person for a long time, or maybe you went through something significant together, or, you had a really strong bond at one point. So you think that you need to maintain the friendship, even though things have really changed. But because you have some of that history, those experiences, you think you are obligated to stay in it, and you are not. And so sometimes we need to just give ourselves permission to move on. Yeah, sometimes we stick out hard times with friends, and it's not about just saying if your friend is going through a hard time and they haven't been as happy and positive as they usually are, and it's kind of, taking a little bit more out of you to be there to support them, that you should just ditch them. Absolutely not. We don't want people to do that to us, to immediately ditch us as soon as we're not, happy and positive and full of life at every second. But there are some times where when things are changing more long-term, when things are becoming maybe even detrimental to you in the relationship, and maybe even detrimental to them. Maybe the combination of the two of you is no longer a great fit. It's not good for either of you. And so during some of those times, then it might be time to take some distance or end things altogether. So I'm going to talk about some kind of key things to look out for, some things that you might want to consider if you've been struggling in a friendship and wondering if it's okay, or like what the signs are, or what to do about it. Then we are going to talk about that today. And I hope that it helps you wherever you're at on your journey. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you. Special hello to my shifters who are here watching. Always good to have you here. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The button's about right down there. And if you could like the video, if you like and get something out of it, that would be amazing. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking this work to a deeper level. You're being supported and held accountable the whole way. You can get more information in the description below. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And as I just talked about, being in friendships that are no longer working, no longer good for us or for the other person, can really be one of those things that hold us back. And like I was saying as well, adult friendships can be tough to navigate. And, you may have been like a teenager or a young adult. You had a bunch of friends, a bunch of people you're around all the time. Maybe you didn't. Maybe that wasn't really your style. But maybe if you did, and then now as an adult in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you find it harder to establish and maintain close friendships. And even in some of the friendships that you have, some of them can be really tough to navigate, really tough to negotiate. I want you to know that that's not weird. That is often what happens as we get older. And I think we do get more specific in what we are looking for in a friendship, that we want something deeper. We want something more meaningful. We don't want just people to go out and party with. We want people to connect with, to go deep with, to be understood by, and we want to understand them. And so that is not always as easy to come by. And I saw this little quote kind of meme thing on Instagram recently that said, the real miracle was that Jesus had 13 close friends in his 30s. I was like, yeah, that is kind of a miracle. I don't know anyone that has that many close friends, especially as an adult. But anyways, looking at this and looking at when it's time to take a step back from a friendship. Because again, yeah, sometimes we do stay in friendships for too long that are just not good for anyone. So here are some signs to look out for that it may be time to take some space or just move along altogether. The first one is if you find that the friendship has become really one-sided. If you kind of see that you are making all of the effort. Now, I'm not saying you're the one to always initiate plans, because some people are just like that. I'm an initiator. I tend to be the person that's more often than not initiating plans, not always, but often. And as long as the people on the other side are very excited and responsive, then I'm like, great. I don't mind being an initiator, so it doesn't have to be always equal. But if I felt like I was always the one initiating and then always trying to convince the other person that to get together would be a good thing or a great idea or something they should want to do, no, I'm not into that. I'm like, I'm not going to force someone to want to spend time with me. But if they're really responsive, then great. I don't mind initiating. But I'm talking about more so when the friendship is one-sided, that you are the one giving and they are the one taking. If you always feel like you're always there for them, always listening to them, always supporting them, always doing what they want, kind of just like circling around them, and they've kind of made themselves the center of the relationship, and there really isn't any space for you, then you might have noticed that and you might have felt like, I'm actually not feeling, really any benefit from this friendship. And there should be mutual benefits to relationships. That's why they are relationships. They're about connection. And, building something together and being involved in something together, not just about one person. And again, I'm not saying that everything always has to be perfectly equal, that you have to have there was 9 minutes that you talked about yourself and now I get the exact same 9 minutes to talk about myself in order to make this equal. Absolutely not. And we know that, obviously. And it's also not to say that we might not need a little extra, someone else, or we might, or they might not need some extra space sometimes if they're going through something hard, right? That we can be there for them a little bit extra and it might be a little bit more about them for a time when they're going through something challenging, but then also being like, okay, and I also know that they are often there for me when I am going through something challenging. So it's not that it's equal, but there tends to be more of a long-term balance. Over time, things kind of balance themselves out. Both people are giving to the relationship. Both people are receiving from the relationship. But if that is not happening, and you feel like all that you're getting from this relationship is being taken from, right? The only thing that's happening is you are being taken from. Then maybe it's time to say, you know what? You need a little bit more support than I can offer. And I need a little bit more support than you can offer. And it might be time to take some distance. The next sign that it might be time to end a friendship is if you don't feel like you can trust the person. Trust is such an important part of every relationship. So if you tell a friend something and immediately, as soon as it comes out of your mouth, you worry about who they're going to tell you, like, shoot, I shouldn't have told them that. It's totally going to get around. And you feel kind of scared or insecure that what you told them is going to be heard by other people, even if you've specifically said, please don't tell anyone, just keep this between you and I. If you don't really feel safe, or if you think that if you share something with them, they could use it against you later on, right? So let's say you said something like, you know what, I'm feeling like really insecure about my body right now. I feel like, maybe I've just not taking as good a care of it. And I've just been not feeling great in my skin, right? And you share something vulnerable. And then a couple weeks later, you get into some kind of fight with this friend and then they use that against you. Where they're like, well, whatever, you're one to talk. You're not even taking care of yourself, or, you've totally let yourself go. And like, as if you can like blame me for that. Look what you're doing, or something like that. Right. So they use it against you in some way. You share something with them. You don't think they're going to keep the secret, or they use your vulnerabilities as ammunition against you. That is just cruel. In any relationship, if someone is using your insecurities against you, I know we all make mistakes and we all say things we don't mean, sort of in the height of an emotion. But if this is a common practice, that really erodes trust. And if you have a friend that is breaking your trust in all these different ways often, then it might be time to find a different friend who you can trust. And also making sure that you are the kind of friend that is trustworthy and that you don't do those things as well. Of course, all of this applies to us as well. We can often use the things that we find challenging about other people, or the things we don't like about other people. We can use that kind of as our own form of self-reflection to be like, okay, this really bothers me when this person does this. This hurts me. I don't like this. So I'm going to really make a point of making sure that I don't do that as well. But yeah, trust is a really big thing in a relationship. The next sign that it might be time to end a friendship is if you find that this friend complains and dumps on you a lot. And I just want to say that there's a difference between venting and dumping. If someone is coming to you and they're like, oh, I just had a really hard day. My boss is breathing down my neck, and then I got all this extra stuff on my plate, and then I came home and, my husband or my wife or my partner, whoever, had left a mess in the kitchen, and I had to come home and deal with all that, and I was exhausted. And then, the dog was like barking at the door and needing to go out, and I just needed a minute to sit down, and it was just, you know what I mean? And then I had all this work to do after getting everything sorted, getting kids to bed, or just like getting everything done in the evening. Then I had to sit down and get more work done. And, you're just calling a friend to be like, like I've just had a day, right? Versus someone who's dumping and being like, oh my gosh, everything is so unfair. My life is so hard. Everyone's against me. This person always does these things to me. It's not fair. It's so challenging. Why does this have to be my life? Someone who's just like kind of making themselves the victim and then like blaming everyone and everything else for it. And then they don't do anything about it, right? So they are complaining, but kind of in that sort of complaining where you can feel the difference between sort of just like, I need to get this off my chest, and I'm going to kind of put this out there and put this on you, and almost like get you to carry my burden. But then if you offer me any suggestions or advice, I'm going to resist it till the end of time. Right? Those people when they're like, oh, everything is so awful. Everything is so unfair. Nothing is working out. Everything is so hard. And then you're like, oh, hey, I hear you. Like, I can hear that it's been really tough on you. Like, what do you think you could do to make things different? Or what are your options? Or maybe, if you're open to it, like, could you try this? And they're like, no, I can't do that. No, that's never going to work. No, it's not going to be okay. No, I've done that and it doesn't work. Right? And they're just always kind of pushing back. And now, fair enough. Not everyone likes to get advice, and same with us as well. But if you're gently offering some suggestions that you think might actually be helpful, and then every time you do, they just resist it, then they might not be wanting to do anything different. They might be kind of set in the dumping, and they might just continue to dump. And maybe they have been dumping for a long time, and you're just feeling like it's a lot. You just don't really want to be dumped on anymore. Now, again, it's not to say that if someone is going through a hard time, that you should just be like, oh, well, you've been, down lately, so I don't have time for you. I don't want this energy in my life. See you later, right? It's not about that. But if someone is coming to you and they're like, hey, I'm going through a hard time right now. I could just use some support, some words of encouragement, maybe even some suggestions because I'm feeling at a loss, and they're open to that, then that is completely different than someone that just dumps and then yeah buts, right? Whenever you kind of try to offer any support or any help, they're like, yeah, but, and they just seem to be almost like committed to staying in their struggle, but then also putting it on you and then resisting. And you felt that. It's kind of like this weird energy that goes on where they like put it on you and almost expect you to fix it. But then any attempts that you give or that you put out there to try and help them, they completely resist it. And it just feels really frustrating. So at times like that, it might just be time to say, it sounds like I am not able to be there for what you need right now. And so it might be time to find, a therapist or a coach or someone else that can be there to help you, because I kind of get the sense that I am not able to give you what you need, and being able to just take that distance. The next sign that it might be time to end a friendship is that they don't support you, or you notice them competing with you. And this is something that can happen in friendships, even with someone that you really love and that they really love you. It can happen sometimes that you will find them competing with you. And this can be really challenging, and you can feel it, even if it's subtle and you can't always put your finger on it. You can kind of tell when someone is trying to one-up you, when they're kind of maybe even kind of belittling in sort of subtle or passive aggressive ways, belittling your accomplishments, or just sort of overshadow and be like, oh yeah, well, you got that promotion. Oh my gosh, though, but my other friend, so-and-so, she got offered like the vice president in her company. She got offered the VP position in her company like just a couple weeks ago. Isn't that amazing? And you're like, oh, okay, like I just got offered, chief coordinator or whatever. And then this person is just sort of taken away that, but to talk about someone else. So it can happen in sort of these subtle ways, where when you are sharing something, when you are talking to your friend and like looking for some encouragement or some celebration or just some acknowledgement, that you find them competing with you, maybe with their own stuff, being like, oh yeah, well, I did this, or that's not that big of a deal. I totally did that, a couple years ago. Or, you can kind of just feel it, or you just feel that they're not supporting you, right? They don't really say anything. They don't really acknowledge any of the successes that you're having when you've come to them. Friends should be there to support us, to be there for us, to lift us up, and vice versa. We should be there for them, be happy for their successes. And I know that we are human and our egos get in the way. And sometimes if someone has something that we want and they get it faster or easier than us, it can bring up insecurity, which then can result in feeling competitive, right? To try and like overshadow that insecurity by trying to make ourselves feel better, by making ourselves above the person or somehow getting above them in some way. Or it can stop us from feeling really excited for them and really being able to support them because it's triggering our own insecurities. And so knowing that these things are normal human things, and it doesn't mean that you are going to never have an ego response to something that someone else has, but really, having friends that even if they are dealing with that they are working on putting that aside. That even more often than not, they are there for you, even if sometimes you have something that they want and they're finding it really hard to celebrate you, right? Like I've had this happen with clients before where, they were friends with people both people were having troubles getting pregnant, and then my client got pregnant, and then their friend was not super supportive of them getting pregnant and wasn't really excited for them, even though they were so excited. But this other friend wasn't, and they were feeling kind of bad because it hadn't happened for them yet. And they were jealous of that. And so that is fair. And that is a normal human emotion, right? I'm not saying that we're never allowed to feel envious of what somebody else has. We're never allowed to be jealous of what somebody else has. But as a friend, we do our best to either put that aside and still try to be happy for them, or try to find other ways to support them and be there for them, even if we really just finding it too hard to support them in this one thing because it hits too close to home. But if you have a friend who is always competing with you, never supportive of you, always kind of making you go away feeling kind of slimed, do you know what I mean? When they kind of make little comments where you're like, that wasn't like an overt criticism. You weren't like, oh, you're not that great, or you suck, or like, that's not that big of a deal. They're not like overtly putting you down, but they kind of say something in this sort of odd way where you're like, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel icky right now. I kind of just feel like I got slimed. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading into things, but that just didn't feel quite right. And if that's sort of a common theme, then it might be time to take some distance from the friendship, because friendships are supposed to be, as much as possible, supportive and encouraging, and we need to be happy for what our friends have. If we can't do it for everything, then at least trying to do it for most things. The next sign that it might be time to end a friendship is they are unreliable. If you are often making plans and then they are canceling at the last minute, or they say they'll do something and then they end up not doing it, it is really hard to maintain a relationship with someone who is unreliable. Now, there is a caveat to that. If you know that the person that you are friends with is typically unreliable, they're kind of flaky, they cancel at the last minute often, and you know that that's likely going to happen and you're okay with that, right? You're not kind of putting all your hopes and dreams on this person following through on your plans to go for a Saturday hike together, because you know they're probably going to cancel, first thing Saturday morning, or if you're lucky, Friday night. And you just know that this is sort of who they are, but you don't take it personally. It doesn't really bother you. You always kind of have a backup plan, or maybe you invite several people along to whatever it is so that if they back out, then it's not like all the plans are ruined. Then you can kind of work with that. But if that is really like a no-go for you, and if you really sort of rely on people to be able to show up for you when they say they will, and of course, extenuating circumstances and things come up, and it's okay to for people to change their minds or to say no to stuff, or just need to reschedule, that can happen. But if it's happening all the time and you really just can't rely on them, and it's really not okay with you, then it might be time to move back, take a step back, and find some friends that are more reliable for you. Especially if, again, that is important to you, and doing these activities and having that person there, like having someone there to do it with you, is pretty imperative, and you can't rely on that person, then it might be time to find some other friends that you can. The next sign that it might be time to end a friendship is if they can't handle honesty. If being open and honest and transparent and working things out and addressing things head on and talking about things, and there's like space for that, if this person cannot handle that, and that's something that's important to you, then it might be time to take a step back from the friendship. Right? If you bring up something that they said or did that hurt you and said, hey, when you did that, I'm sure you weren't intending it, or it was maybe just not, it was an accident, but I just want you to know that hurt my feelings, or that bothered me, or, that had an impact on me. And if they flip out or freak out or scream or yell at you or turn on you or ghost you, right, give you the silent treatment for several days because you wanted to have an honest conversation about something that happened in the relationship and talk about it in an honest, mature way, and they can't cope with that, then it might be time to take a step back from the friendship. And now, truth is, if they can't talk about it, it probably is because they are conflict avoidant. There might be some trauma there. There might be a lot of shame there where they just can't cope with anyone pointing out anything that they did wrong, and there's probably a good reason for that. But it also is a good reason if you want someone that you can have those conversations with, that is able to have that. You wanting that or needing that in a relationship is a good reason, because you want it, because that's important to you. So it's not necessarily that they're a horrible person or that you're too needy of a person. It just might be that it's not the right fit. So if honesty is something that's important to you, then having someone that can cope with honesty is going to be important. And I remember this was several years ago. Oh my gosh, at least 10 years ago. I was working at a clinic with a group of therapists, and I'd become really good friends with this one woman, and we just spent a lot of time together. We'd spend our lunch breaks together. We'd go for walks, we'd eat, we'd talk. We even got together sometimes outside of work to do things, go for walks, hang out, go have a coffee. And I really liked her, and we got pretty close. And then it was this one weekend, I was having just a handful of women over to my house just for an afternoon of like tea and visiting and like hanging out. And she was so excited. She's like, yep, I'll totally be there. I can't wait. And I was so excited to have her there. I was really excited to introduce her to some of my other friends because I really just thought she was great. And, it was a small group of women. I think it was only like 5 women that were coming over. So I had planned and prepared for these 5 women that said for sure they were coming, and it was back like a while ago when I really was like pinching pennies every month to kind of make ends meet. So throwing an afternoon for women and like making it really nice and buying the right amount of food and like, getting all the things together. It was a significant expense for me, but I was so happy to do it. And so then it was that morning, about an hour before everyone was supposed to come over, she called me and she said, oh, hey, I was out with this guy last night and like, we're out really late. So I'm kind of tired. So I'm not going to be able to make it. Have fun. And I'm guessing that she didn't think that this afternoon together was as big of a deal to me as it was. And so I was like, okay, like I get it. Things come up, like your world doesn't have to revolve around my little afternoon gathering. I totally get that. But I just also wanted her to know that I noticed, right? That like when I'm very intentional about stuff, if I plan something, if I invite you to something, then I really want you to be there. And it's on purpose that I have invited you, right? It's because I want you there, not just I want people there. I want these specific people there. And so I talked to her and I said, hey, no, totally get it that things come up. But I'm a little bit disappointed because I was really looking forward to having you here. But yeah, I just want you to know that you will be missed. And I know it'll be noticeable that you aren't there. So I hope maybe, you can make the next one or whatever. But yeah, get it, but also feeling disappointed. And she hung up the phone and didn't speak to me for 2 months. And it was kind of after that, we were never that close anymore because I was like, you know what? I can't be in a close friendship. I can be in a casual friendship, right? Just like a surface friendship and not have to have, like this level of sort of honesty and vulnerability, but we had gotten really close. And so we were really close. We talked about some really personal things. So I felt like the relationship was deep enough to be able to handle that honesty. But it wasn't, or it's not that it wasn't, but she couldn't handle it. And I didn't know that. And when she did that, when she just sort of hung up on me and she didn't talk to me for 2 months, I was like, okay, I'm not like angry. I'm not like, you're a horrible person. I was like, okay, there's something. I hit a sore spot there. I hit something because that was a big reaction to something that I didn't think was that big of a deal, but everyone is different. But I just sort of realized I'm not really interested in getting really close to her after that happened because I just need to be in close relationships where there is space for some honesty, some respectful honesty, some considerate honesty. But there just sort of wasn't. So it was time to take some distance for me. Somebody else might be totally fine with that. I am not. So that might be a sign for you to take some space from or end a friendship. The next sign is, this is an important one. You don't feel good about yourself when you're with that person. And this can be hard, especially if you've been friends for a long time. And then, you just sort of see this gradual shift where you change or they change or something in the dynamic changes and you no longer feel good about yourself. Or maybe you never really did, but you thought it would get better. But maybe you go away from hanging out with them and you kind of replay all the conversations that you had, being like, kind of, what did they mean by that? Or I didn't feel like they kind of gave me a weird look when I said that. I wonder what that was about. Or you kind of second guess yourself, or you doubt yourself, or you're like, I just don't feel great about myself. I don't feel like this person really gets me or supports me, or I don't know, I feel kind of judged by them. And I'm not talking about if you're dealing with sort of your own insecurities. right? That this can be a projection, right? If we're dealing a lot with our own big insecurities, then we can be projecting these things onto other people. And you can almost feel like no matter where we go or who we're with, we think we're being judged, or we think that someone is having thoughts about us that we don't want them to have, or we're kind of second guessing ourselves. I'm not talking about that. So if it's more of a you issue where you just generally feel insecure, then just a second and I have something for you to deal with that. But if it's like a specific friendship where you're like, I usually feel good around most people, but this person, I don't know, there's just something where I don't really feel great about myself. I feel, like I'm being sort of judged, or they're kind of scrutinizing the things that I'm saying, or, it just I don't go away feeling good. I feel kind of weird after I've spent time with them. Then it might be time to take a step back. Now, back to what I was saying before, if this is sort of a feeling that you generally have, if you're like, I often find myself second guessing myself after I come away from social situations or conversations, or if I think most people are judging me, or I'm just sort of like mind reading and thinking, oh yeah, this person doesn't like me, or this person must be judging me, or, everything I do is kind of weird, or like, what are people thinking about me? And you kind of have these thoughts going through your head often, where you feel awkward and uncomfortable about yourself in most places when you're with other people, then yes, that is a sign that you are struggling with your self-esteem, that you don't feel comfortable and confident with yourself in general. And if that is the case, then building self-trust, sort of that foundation of every healthy relationship, which is trust, building that trust is the key foundation to building your self-esteem, to building your self-confidence. And I have a guide for you. It's called the Simple Steps to Self-Trust, and it's going to walk you through what you need to know and what you need to have, sort of how to build that foundation so that your relationship with yourself, your confidence, your self-esteem, kind of your sense of self-worth can just grow and flourish almost organically and naturally after you build this foundation of self-trust. It's called the Simple Steps to Self-Trust, and it really is going to be how the most effective way for you to start building your relationship with yourself, becoming more confident, more self-assured, more solid and secure in who you are. So make sure you get that simple steps to self-trust. Also get on the wait list for the Shift Society. That is going to be huge for doing all of this work and being supported the whole way through. Adult friendships can be tough. Sometimes we are fearful of ending a friendship because we're like, I don't have a ton of friends. I can't go just like discarding, random ones willy-nilly, because they can be, tough to establish, and they're kind of fewer and further between. And so yes, there are some relationships that are worth fighting for, figuring things out for, right? Like people that you're like, this is a hard time, but I think we can figure this out. I think we can get through this. And then there's times where you're like, I really don't think we can. I don't think this person is available for what I want from a friendship, what I'm looking for. And maybe I'm not available for them for what they want or what they're looking for. And so maybe I just need to make peace with that and leave that or end that friendship so that I can create space for and time for going out and meeting some new people and starting to build some new relationships that are more in alignment with what I want and what I'm looking for and the type of person that I really want to connect with. Through thick and thin. Again, doesn't mean everything has to be perfect all the time, but the kind of person that I'm kind of like, yeah, we can work. This is the kind of person that I want to work things out with, and they're available to work things out with, and that I want to grow with, and I want to get closer to. And this is the kind of friendship that I want. So knowing it's not always easy, knowing that it can be really hard to negotiate, navigate adult friendships, you are definitely not alone in this. But it is an important thing to have people around us that we love and that we know love us and that we support and that we know support us and that we trust and we know trust us and that we feel good and able to be ourselves around and they feel good and able to be themselves around, where there is this mutual benefit to both people. Even if things aren't always perfect, there is a dedication on both sides and a commitment to continuing to grow together, to be connected, to invest in each other, to both give and receive from each other. I think those kinds of relationships are the ones that we hold dear. And if you have one person like that in your life, count yourself lucky. If you have more than that, count yourself as having won the friendship lottery. Would love to hear your thoughts about this. Grab that Simple Steps to Self-Trust. Get on the wait list for the Shift Society. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you got something useful out of it. That would be amazing. And until next time, take good care of yourselves. Take good care of the people around you.